You've definitely seen this supposedly profound quote from the late Michael Brooks, who, no disrespect to him, is an extremely terrible sentiment that I deeply regret is what he is remembered for, because he made much better things than this. Be ruthless with systems, be kind to people. Sounds great on the surface if you are like a wishy-washy liberal who ultimately has some pretty rather complicated motivations in liking this sort of sentiment that we're going to be getting into here. Because the fact is that this is just wrong. Be ruthless with systems, be kind to people. It treats systems as if they are just gods, as if they are disconnected from people, but they're not. Systems exist because certain groups of people create, uphold, and maintain them, often without even being conscious about it. Because certain groups of people will die before letting those systems fall. And that means that you can't simply be kind to people while fighting the system, because the systems are intertwined with people always. It can sometimes be a small group of people. It can often be a much larger group of people who have a compromise with that system. Like, who is the system for in like a poor third world country? Well, it's for like, the imperialist elites and the local compradors who benefit from their collaboration with them. Who benefits from the system in Israel? Every single Jewish person does. It's by them, for them. So this sort of sentiment is materially incorrect, empirically wrong, and also misleading, because systems are always upheld by people. Often systems are handcrafted, intelligently designed by people. You can't just disconnect them from that. You're going to have to be ruthless with people to be ruthless with systems. They're not going to go down without a fight. Many of them will die before they let you bring the system that they uphold down. It can be because they benefit from it, which many of them factually do. It can also be because they think they benefit from it when they don't. Either way, you're not going to have the opportunity to just be kind with them. Like, let's apply this to Israel, BDS. I know that Michael Brooks supported BDS, obviously, but there's a contradiction here, because by boycotting and sanctioning Israel, you're not being kind to people, you're being ruthless to them. You're depriving them of basic goods, basic comforts, things they need and want, because ultimately they're the ones who uphold the system, and they need to be deprived of those things to force them into submission. That's not being kind to them, that's being ruthless with them. So this is a very bad and misleading quote that misleads you away from being able to even fight these systems in the way that's needed. It gets you thinking that you can just make denouncements about these systems without fighting anyone, but you can't. Systems are irrevocably intertwined with people, always. And there's two great examples of this that I want to talk about, because the sentiment behind this quote and the quote itself is often misused. And I think I know why. I think it's because people in first world countries, especially, don't really want to reckon with the fact that, passively or not, they benefit quite a bit from imperialism. In first world countries, wages are higher. Even if you don't directly get welfare benefits from the government, your wages are higher. Prices relative to wages are lower than third world countries. You have a higher average standard of living than people in third world countries, often by a lot, often by 4 or 5 times or more, even if you're poor, even if you're middle class. So you're someone who, whether you like it or not, there's a system that benefits you. And a lot of people are made uncomfortable by that, because the notion that there's a system that benefits them, they don't like it, okay? For many of them, it sort of shatters the belief that they have in this sort of thing, in this idea that you can just struggle all as one against the system without sacrificing anything, without fighting anyone, without giving anything up, without taking any risks. That's simply not the case. Good examples of this are Israel. You see people very often want to deny that Israeli Jews benefit from Israeli colonialism, when they obviously do. They get free houses, they get free citizenship just for being Jewish, They get to do murder tourism of Palestinians. They get tons of benefits, they get higher incomes, higher wages, lower prices, welfare, free healthcare just for being Jewish. If you're Jewish, Israel is awesome for you a lot of the time. That's why 80% of Jews worldwide support Israel, because it's good for them. It really is. They just don't give a fuck that it comes at the cost of an entire other group of people. But this makes people uncomfortable. I've been saying recently that a part of this is Jewish exceptionalism, which is that people have been indoctrinated to believe that Jews can only ever be innate victims for the purpose of making them support Israel, or to be lighter on Israel than they'd otherwise be. And yeah, that's one part of it. This idea that you can only be against Israel if you also imagine that it's bad for Jews, and you also imagine that Israel is anti-Semitic, when it's not. It's not, just not. Like, you have to come to terms with the fact that Israel is bad, and it can also be bad, even if it's good, for the people who benefit from it. Those two aren't mutually exclusive things, but Jewish exceptionalism sort of makes them think otherwise. But there's also another element to it, which is, though they obviously don't benefit nearly as directly and obviously as Israelis do from Israeli colonialism, they want to sort of disconnect themselves from the systems that they benefit from as well. And if you acknowledge this sort of thing, then that also causes cognitive dissonance in them, because while they may not benefit nearly as obviously and directly as Israelis do from colonizing Palestine, they nonetheless operate with similar motives and similar logics in their lack of action against imperialism, their lack of focus on it. I think they know deep down they benefit from it, but they don't want to say that. They don't want to admit that because it causes cognitive dissonance, you know? And this causes like a deep discomfort in them, in like liberal pseudo-intellectual sort of people, to honest materialistic examinations of the motivating factors. I had a lot of people who were incredibly uncomfortable at a recent post I made on my second channel because of this as well, where I said that the Nazis were popular among people who they considered part of their in-group, that is, supposedly pure racial Germans who were able-bodied, because they got benefits. I said the Nazis wanted social services for their in-group, the Nazis wanted welfare for their in-group, the Nazis wanted housing for their in-group, the Nazis wanted to hand out land to their in-group, the Nazis wanted good working conditions for their in-group. If you live in the imperialistic nations, yet your politics are not international and instead are just centered around gaining benefits for your in-group while ignoring others who suffer as a result, then there is much less separating you from Nazis than you think. This is just true. And in a follow-up post, I explained a bit more, like, that this is just true. Like, from, like, the seminal work on this, Hitler's Beneficiaries, by Gotz Ali, by even the most conservative estimates, the Third Reich extracted 2.2 trillion euros in present-day money per year in war revenues that it got from conquering other people's countries and genociding people there and stealing their stuff. 2 trillion. That was 10 times more income from foreign sources that Germany had gained in 1938 before the war. The policy of plunder was the cornerstone for the welfare of the so-called German people and a major guarantor of their political loyalty, which was first and foremost based on material considerations. The unshakable alliance between the state and the people was not primarily the result of cleverly conceived party propaganda. That's one thing, right? Liberals want to act like Hitler was popular among people who were considered Aryans or whatever because he was just like a brilliant orator and they were propagandized. No. He was popular because while he massacred and brutalized tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people, there were tens of millions of people who reap the benefits of that. And you need to reckon with that because it's true. You need to get rid of this immaterial, like Hitler used technology sort of thing, because it's not true. People are complicit in systems. And this is the most direct and clear example of that. The unshakable alliance between the state and the people was created by the means of theft, with the spoils being redistributed according to egalitarian principles among the members of the ethnically defined Volk. Germans were kept passive and generally content by a lavish social welfare system that was paid for by these riches. The improvement in the public mood... before I continue, I just want to note that the Nazis said that they were against welfare, but they were very much not actually against it. They just were against... They were against welfare, and then they changed the name of welfare to something else and said it wasn't welfare, is what actually happened. And they had like a welfare agency tied to the party that was in charge of giving supposedly racially pure Aryans welfare. They just call it something else. The improvement in public mood came with increases in people's material welfare. This explains policies like the tax benefits aimed at German workers in the fall of 1940, the hike of pensions in 1941, and the government's refusal to impose any direct, broad wartime levies in the years that followed. Once Germany invaded the Soviet Union, the public was only confirmed in its belief that Germany's rearmament and war debts existed merely on paper. So it's not only that either as well. The Nazis also promised people that on top of these immediate benefits from war, which obviously didn't last, that once they had achieved their goals and conquered everything, they would all have land. They would have Slavic slaves to work to death on their nice little farm. All of them would have blue-haired, blonde-eyed. I got it. Blue-haired, blonde-eyed. I should keep that in. It's funny. Blonde-haired, blue-eyed Aryan wife and 5 perfect Aryan children to work their land. Or no, they wouldn't work their land. The Slavic slaves would do that for them. Basically, Hitler had this delusional, racial supremacist, genocidal promise to turn every member of his in-group eventually into a petit bourgeois slave owner who would never have to really work a day in their lives anymore. Obviously, it was false bullshit that was impossible. The Nazis never could have won the war. But the point is, they thought they could. And he gave them benefits that made them believe it further, and that they did really benefit from. And they were motivated by further potential future benefit in supporting him further. Israel really is like the closest existing thing to what Nazi Germany might have looked like if they had somehow won or like stopped after they conquered Poland or some other impossibility. I'm just using this for analogy purposes. Okay. Like Israel is a highly developed racial Volkish state, as it's called in academia, that got well past the point the Nazis ever got their attempt at forming a Volkish state too. If the Nazis had succeeded, you could definitely imagine them having the same sorts of like racial in-group immigration, welfare, oppressive policies of those who they left alive to keep enslaving, sort of thing. So yeah, be kind to people, be ruthless to systems. I'm sorry, Michael. I talked to Michael a bit during the last few months of his life. All respect to him and his legacy and all that, but this one was a miss. Even if he didn't actually mean this by it, it's what people think he meant by it. It's the white liberals' I have a dream. In order to be ruthless to systems, you're going to have to be ruthless to the people who uphold them. And many people who think they are radicals, who think they are against the system, who even think they're against imperialism, ultimately, when it comes down to it, if it did come down to it, I think they would uphold the system. And we'd have to be ruthless to them. I hope they prove me wrong, though. But yeah, I just wanted to make this little clip here because I noticed this sort of rhetoric, and it's wrong. It misleads people away from correctly diagnosing problems and fighting against them in the correct ways that are actually effective. If I was a billionaire capitalist, I would spread this quote everywhere. It's perfect because it ensures that people will never turn their ire towards people, including them.